Hey guys, what's up? This is LeoHightower once again via webcam. First off, before I begin this video, I want to thank you guys very much for all your comments and love on my 50th video spectacular. Thank you guys very much. Okay, let me get down to I have some bad news I want to get off my chest right now. First, the bad news. Due to technical difficulties beyond my control, my PC controller has stopped working properly for me, and because of that, I'm going to have to cancel my LPs of Super Mario RPG, and my second LP video, which I was going to post up if my controller hadn't stopped working on me correctly, was going to be it was going to be either Sparkster for Sega Genesis or just a playthrough of one of the mini games I got on the Super Nintendo emulator. But overall, because of that, all LP videos are canceled until then. This does not include Streets of Rage Remake or anything else like that, but all Let's Plays are canceled until further notice. Yeah, it sucks. Project Sage is going to be making a small comeback sometime soon. Here's the good news. Character profiles will be posted soon on YouTube, very, very soon. And right now what I'm doing is I'm working on character profiles for my main characters. Sad news, however, I've decided to, once again, because I can't think of a good way to bring them into the story, I've decided to drop putting Trent Williams and the Hunters into my project. This is a sad, sad thing for me to do, but if I ever think of something to do with Trent Williams and the other Hunters, I'll think of something to do with them in the meantime. But for now, Trent Williams and the others are axed from Project Sage as of this moment. Sorry guys, this is hard on me, unfortunately, but that's all the little update info I wanted to give you. I'll try posting some new stuff from Project Sage sometime soon. Also, on a side note, I made a separate DeviantArt account for all Project Sage and story-related info. If you guys want to know exactly what's going on and what I'm thinking of for Project Sage and everything like that, you can go to my new DeviantArt account. My new DeviantArt account is Leon Murayami. Look it up sometime. But those are all the updates I got right now. Anyway, let's move on to the next part of this video. Alright, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the next part of this video. Not to copy off of Velocityeleven. That's how you pronounce her YouTube name, but I'm going to show off some of my PS2 games. I've been meaning to do this for a good while, but I'll show off some of my PS2 games, and some of the games that I used to have on PS2, I'll talk about those. But for now, let's get started, shall we? I got my box of PS2 games right here. All of them in alphabetical order. First off, we're going to start with Ape Escape 2 for PS2 right here. Sequel to the first Ape Escape game. I don't know if you can see it because of the webcam image and everything like that. There you go, Ape Escape 2. Next up, we have Ape Escape 3. I love this Ape Escape game right here because of the different characters you can play as Kai and Yumi, and of course the reintroduction of the Freaky Monkey 5. This took me a while to find Ape Escape 3, but I was happy when I found a copy at GameStop for about $19. Next up is one of my favorite 2D fighting games by Atlas, Arcana Heart. I love all the different female characters they have on here, and the 2D and the fighting system. It takes a while to get into it, but it's tons of fun. This version I got includes Arcana Heart, the remixed Arcana Heart full, and unlockable gallery content. Basically, this is a game that both me and my cousin Sarl Sin bought together. I don't know if you can see that well. There we go. But it's a game that me and my cousin Sarl Sim both decided to get. Anyway, moving on. Next up is one of my favorite little Rainbow Studio games, ATV Off-Road Fury 2. We got this free when we had to replace my brother's PS2 because I accidentally broke it while trying to clean it out one day. The PS2 got all messed up, and I tried to clean it out and accidentally pulled on the power strip ribbon by accident. And when we got the new PS2 from my brother, we got this for free. My brother didn't play it, so I decided to, and it's now one of my favorite games of all time. This is made by Rainbow Studios, the same people who made ATV I'm sorry, not ATV Off-Road Fury, but Motocross Madness for the PC. Moving on, next game is, anybody who's anybody should have this game right here, Burnout Revenge for PS2 right here. I love this game to death. This is one of my brother's favorite games of all time. He loves the Burnout series, and this is one of my favorites too. I love doing the Crash Breaker races and the stunt mode, where you can crash your car into all the different cars around the area and rack up tons of money. The music tracks are awesome, and it's just a fun game with multiplayer. I just wish they play music when you do multiplayer, because that's one of my pet peeves about it. But overall, Burnout Revenge, awesome game. Moving on. Just move that down there. Moving on is... Alright, I'm going to do two at the same time. Capcom's Classic Collections Volume 1 through 2, Volume 1 and Volume 2. This is a collection of some of Capcom's greatest games of all time from the old arcades, which include Street Fighter 2, Ghosts and Goblins, Final Fight, Knights of the Round, Strider, Magic Sword, and Sun and a bunch of other amazing games on it. These two, I have both 1 and 2 right here, and they're both in excellent working condition. Volume 2 has a Capcom version of Quiz and Dragons, and I love that bit better than the original because I can actually work on both of them at the same time. There's Volume number 1, and here's Volume number 2 right here. Moving on, we have one of my favorite 2D fighting games of all time, and the sequel, Capcom vs. SNK 2, Mark of the Millennium. This is one of my favorite fighting games of all time. I used to have this game on Dreamcast, but when I found out that it was on, no, I'm sorry, I don't think it was on Dreamcast, but I used to have this on PS2, and when I found another copy of it, I jumped on the bandwagon to get it. This is possibly one of my favorite games of all time because of the different characters you can play from Capcom fighters all the way up to SNK fighters. And I wish I could have someone else to play this game with, just like Arcana Heart, because it's a fun, solid game. One thing about this game is, it has a bad scratch on it, but it still plays solidly. Anyway, moving on. Next up is one of my favorite games by Konami, Castlevania. Castlevania Lament of Innocence for the PS2. A lot of people don't like this Castlevania, but the music in it is great. It gets a little repetitive with the whip controls, but I love it. Anyone who likes Castlevania should play this one, especially because it kind of explains the origin of the Belmont family, of the Belmont clan, and the music is beautiful, made by the same developers of the critically acclaimed Symphony of the Night. It's just wonderful. Next game is Dark Cloud. The first Dark Cloud game. I had this on PS1 back then when my sister used to stay over here with me and my aunt, and it was just a blast to play with. I enjoyed playing as Tone and some of the other characters, but after a while, going through the rest of the game, to me, it felt like it got a little bit worser. I also liked the Georama method where you could help rebuild the specific towns and stuff like that. It was just fun, but going through the dungeons and going through the extra floors is a real pain sometimes. I only managed to beat the game once, and I'm close to beating the game again. Next up is another one of my favorite PS2 games, Dark Cloud 2. I'm close to beating this one too. It's fun to play as Max or Monica on this one, and this is a solid game that goes all the way from beginning to end, although in my opinion the extra dungeon at the end isn't quite worth it if you ask me. But overall, they expanded on the Georama method greatly, in which what you do in the past to fix the future can change how it looks and everything. I just like it. Dark Cloud 2 is possibly one of my favorite titles of all time. I rented it back then when it first came out, and around Christmas 2006, I got it for PS2. It's just fun. I'm close to beating this game, just like number 1. Ready? Moving on, we have Dragon Quest VIII. This is a solid classic style RPG game made by Square Enix and, of course, Level 5, who are my favorite video game developers, the same people who did Dark Cloud. This is a great classic style RPG. If you're familiar with Dragon Warrior, you should know what this is. I actually beat Dragon Quest VIII not too long ago, and right now I'm working on the secret dungeon with the dragons and everything like that. Wish me luck on that one, guys, because once I'm finished with getting the special ending, the second ending to this game, I think I'm just going to trade this in. But that's Dragon Quest VIII right there. Alright, moving on to the next game. You'll have to excuse the box art, but Dead or Alive 2 Hardcore. Sorry if you can't see it that well. This is Dead or Alive 2 Hardcore. Basically Dead or Alive 2 on the PS2. This was the only Dead or Alive game that, this was the first Dead or Alive game I actually played back then when we still had the Dreamcast, and I didn't know much about Tecmo a lot back then except for Monster Rancher, but this is one of my favorite 3D fighting games of all time. I love the Dead or Alive series. It's fast-paced, it's fun, and I love all the characters in it. I just wish that they could have ported some of the other Dead or Alive games onto PS2 and the other systems, but Itagaki went with Xbox, and I respect that opinion, especially because my cousin played all the Dead or Alive games, including the first one, including Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball. But Dead or Alive 2, I play this a lot with my little cousins. They love it. And we have fun playing tag team mode. Next up is another one of my favorite games by Capcom. The first Devil May Cry game, and this is the greatest hits one right here. Next up is Dead or Alive 3 Dante's Awakening Special Edition, where you can play as Virgil in this one. Next up is Dragon Ball Z Budokai. Sorry if you can't see right there. The first Dragon Ball Z Budokai game. Next up is Dragon Ball Z Budokai 2. I got this as a birthday gift when I first got Sonic Heroes for PS2. I still play it every once in a while, but most of the time I don't play my Dragon Ball Z games anymore. Alrighty. The next up is Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3. Yeah, the case sucks. I wish GameStop would have gave me an actual case instead of this one. And because there's no cover art right here or anything like that, but it has the instruction booklet. See? There's the instruction booklet in the disc. Sometimes GameStop is a pain in the ass, sometimes it's not. And next up is one of my favorite little rhythm games, which is a rare gem. Guitar Man. I love this game to death. The music, the gameplay, everything. Made by Koei, the same people who did Dynasty Warriors. It's easy to pick up and difficult to master. It's a fun game. It racks up with Guitar Hero in my opinion, except well you don't use the guitar controller. Next up is one of my favorite RPG games of all time. I wish I had the Dreamcast version. Is Grandia 2. I love this game so much. Great RPG game, by the way. Next up is one of my favorite 2D fighting games of all time. I'm going to show you both cases of what I got. Is Guilty Gear X. Basically, this is a copy I got from Game Exchange one day, and this is the copy I got from GameStop when I graduated from high school. The reason why I got two copies is because of one of my old copies messing up on me one time. And when I got the second copy, I decided to keep both copies specifically because of the way how one of the first copy's disc is. The first copy's disc plays alright, but sometimes the music can skip, which is why I got the second copy right here. I blame GameStop for the first copy of his disc. Anyway, moving on is the sequel, Guilty Gear X2. I was lucky to find Part 2 at Hastings one day when I was shopping around with my aunt. I have yet to get back to playing Part 2 because I'm usually stuck playing Accent Core Guilty Gear X. This one includes Judgment, Cliff, and some other characters hidden in it. I had the original, but I traded it in for Accent Core Plus, especially because of the music disc on it. Anyway, next up is one of my favorite games by Naughty Dog, besides the Crash Bandicoot series, Jak and Daxter, and the Precursor Legacy, and this is the greatest hits version right here. I love the Jak and Daxter series. It's just fun, fun, fun. Next up is the sequel, Jak 2. Now, when I played this game, I wasn't expecting it to be all edgy and everything like that, especially with it being darker, but it was just awesome to play through. And I didn't mind Jak's new attitude. Knocked over most of my games, you have to excuse me right here. Just put them right here. Alright, next up is Jak 3. The game that ends the trilogy in a way. I like Jak 3 a lot. Awesome game. And the ending is just amazing. Next up is my favorite, is another Jak game, Jak X Combat Racing. A lot of people might say this game is mediocre, but this game is fun, especially if you're a fan of Naughty Dog. And if you have a copy of Ratchet & Clank Deadlocked, you can unlock Ratchet in the game, which is awesome. Alright, next up is one of my personal favorites. This is Kingdom Hearts 1, and for PS1, this is the greatest hits version, and Kingdom Hearts 2. This is also the greatest hits version. I like the Kingdom Hearts series. I did have Chain of Memories for PS2, but after I beat the first game with Sora, I traded it in like an idiot. I don't like the way how Chain of Memories battle system is. I don't like the idea of battling with cards, unless it's with Pokemon the trading card game, which I got on Game Boy Color for my Game Boy player on my GameCube. Anyway, moving on. Next up is one of my new recent games I got not too long ago because I was interested in it, is Manakemia, Alchemist of Elariez. Sorry if you can't see it that well. There you go, Manakemia. And next up is my Mega Man Anniversary Collection, my copy of Mega Man Anniversary Collection. Also, I'll show you off the edge. Also included in it, because I took it out of my Mega Man 8 booklet, is I put this with it, my Mega Man Anthology mini booklet, which came with Mega Man 8 for PS1 back then. If you ask me, I think the PS1 version was a bit toned down, because in the PS1 version of Mega Man 8, you got to fight against Woodman and Cutman, and it was a bit more brighter. But that's the anthology booklet right there I got with Mega Man 8. Just put that back in there. And we'll move on to the next game. Alrighty. Next up is it's the not so good sequel, but it introduced Axel, Mega Man X7. I wish they could have done a little bit more better with Mega Man X7, because of the way how the characters move and everything, and I hate rescuing the Reploids in this game, unfortunately. But Mega Man X7 introduced Axel, first PS2 game first Mega Man X game for PS2. Wish they could have done a little bit better, in my opinion. Excuse the blurriness of the webcam. Alright, next up is Mega Man X8. I like the way how Mega Man X8 ends, but in my opinion, Capcom should really bring, or I should say Crapcom should bring back Mega Man, and in every way possible. I'm sorry that in original creator of Mega Man left Capcom, but I guess he had his reasons also for leaving and everything. But if Capcom wants to sell big bucks again, they need to start doing Mega Man again, because doing Street Fighter 4 by itself and the way how Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom is looking, there's no way I'm going to keep going with Crapcom anymore. Crapcom took us for a ride and I went on it, but I got off of the ride after hearing about Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and most of the other games they're working on. Though I'm still looking forward to Street Fighter X Tekken, but in my opinion, it just looks like Street Fighter 4 with Tekken characters. Anyway, moving on is a rare gem, is Mega Man X Command Mission for PS2. I paid about 20 bucks to get this game from Hastings, and when I got my copy, it was after I graduated, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a graduation present. I wanted to play this game so much back then. Also included in it is, let me see if I can find it, was a card, which came with it, a trading card. There we go. Mega Man X trading card right here. And that came with the game. I don't like the way how X Command Mission ended, sadly, because it just kind of left me with a bitter taste in my mouth after, just like the ending for Mega Man X5 when you get X's bad ending. Anyway, moving on. Oh, this one is special to my heart and everything like that, is Metal Gear Solid: The Essentials Collection. But here's the kicker. I have the expanded version of I have the expansion versions of Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance and Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence right here. If you have these original copies of Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3, your best bet is to trade in the copies that come with the Essential Collection. That way it's much better and easier. Also included is, of course, the original Metal Gear Solid, which I love, which is near and dear to me. Because if you want my opinion, just trade in the copies that come with the Essentials Collection for the copies of Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance and Metal Gear Solid Subsistence. It's a better deal that way, and it makes the Essentials Collection much, much better, in my opinion. It makes it much, much better. Because the copies that come with it aren't really all that good, in my opinion. The copies that come with the Essentials Collection and Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3, they're not worth it, especially because of the Subsistence copy. All you get is one disc, and in my opinion, that sucks. It sucks. Moving on is one of my favorite games, sequel to Parappa the Rapper, Parappa the Rapper 2. I like Parappa the Rapper 2. The soundtrack is just awesome. Next up is anyone who's a PlayStation owner PS2 owner should have these games. Ratchet and Clank. This is the first Ratchet and Clank game. It's not the greatest hits version, but it's the first Ratchet and Clank game. Ratchet and Clank Going Commando. Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal, which is my personal favorite. And of course, the greatest hits version of Ratchet Deadlocked. Awesome game. No Clank to help you out in the gameplay, but he's there spiritually. I like this game. Move this out of the way. Next up is, a lot of fans speculate this is the greatest Resident Evil game of all time, Resident Evil 4. And this is the PS2 version right here, which includes all the extras, including the Separate Ways, Ada Wong minigame, and of course the Parasite laser, the PRL 412 laser cannon, and the gunpowder bowgun, which is awesome. Next up is another Sony Computer Entertainment America Level 5 game, Rogue Galaxy. I've yet to get back to this game, but so far it's pretty good, but damn is it challenging. I need to find a good time to get back to this one sometime. Okay, next up is one of my favorite games in series of all time, Sonic Mega Collection Plus, which includes all the Sega Genesis Sonic games, including Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, as well as a few other games like Comic Zone, Flicky, and the one I hate the most, which makes no sense, the Ooze. Who in their right mind thought that would be a good idea to put in the game? Moving on. Next game up, greatest hits version of Sonic Heroes. I still play this every once in a while, but I need to find a good time to get back to it to get all A emblems on this game badly. Next up is, a lot of people don't like this game, but I like it, regardless, Shadow the Hedgehog. There's no way I'm going to be able to get all 350-something enemies in this game. I'll just stick with the ones I got and play through my favorite stages. Next up is Sonic Riders. I like the first Sonic Riders game, but some of the missions are really difficult. And next up is the sequel, Sonic Riders Zero Gravity. I don't like the sequel too much because they took out the ability to pull up tricks Tony Hawk style in this one, but this is an okay sequel in my opinion. I want to play Sonic Free Riders though, damn it. Curse you, Xbox 360 Connect. I'm looking right at you. Next up is Soul Calibur 3. This is where I got my start of creating my custom characters like Sage and Reina and all the others on this one. Soul Calibur 3, awesome title. I like this game definitely. Wish we had Soul Calibur 2, the original Soul Calibur for Dreamcast. Next up is one of my favorite games based on an favorite Midway game based on an arcade game, Spy Hunter. I used to have the greatest hits version, but instead I got this one overall. Unfortunately, you control the G6 155 Interceptor car, and this is awesome. I have yet to beat this game again, though. I gotta find a good time to get back to it. Next up is the limited edition mission special cover Director's Cut, Star Ocean Till the End of Time. I like this one. I like this Star Ocean specifically, but I don't think I'm gonna bother getting Star Ocean 4. I have Star Ocean 1 and 2 on PSP, basically the remake of Star Ocean 1 on the PSP, excuse me. But I like this game because in the Director's Cut edition, you get the all CGI expanded events, music, and CGI sequences, and the versus mode, where you can play two-player versus mode. Next up is Tales of the Abyss. I gotta find a good time to get back to that one too. I neglect most of my games that are unfinished. If you want to know more about any games I haven't played or anything, check out my backloggery, and my backloggery name is LeoHightower on there. Awesome game. I have yet to beat it though. I don't know how close I am to beating Tales of the Abyss, but I'll get back to it soon. Next up is Tekken Tag Tournament. I used to have the greatest hits version, but I settled for this one. Tekken Tag Tournament is a fun fighting game. My dad is a Tekken wizard, and I wish he was here right now so I could show you, introduce you to him. Next up is Tekken 4. And after that is, last but not least, Tekken 5, greatest hits version. So those are basically all the PS2 games that I own. Next up, I will tell you what PS2 games I used to have. And now, I'm going to name off and show some of the games that I used to have on PS2 that I either lost, they got stolen, or I traded them in. First up is one game that is near and dear to me I had on the Dreamcast, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. The grease in the case, I have the case still, but the disc disappeared on me. I don't know what happened to the disc. It just upped and disappeared one day in my brother's room, and I searched all over his room for it, and I could not find it anywhere. The case's plastic wrapping got torn off somehow. I don't know how when I found it, but as you can see, the case's plastic wrapping is all gone and everything. The instruction booklet is still here, and so is the cover art. But that's pretty much it. The game, I still have the box and the instruction booklet, but the disc is gone. Next up is PS2 Namco Museum. And this is really my brother's game, but I play it a lot. The reason why the case looks like this is I guess someone lost the cover art in the instruction booklet. This is basically Namco Museum. It has a bunch of Namco hit games like Pac-Man, Galaga, Dig Dug, Pole Position. It also has arrangement versions of Pac-Man, Galaga, and Pole Position 2 and whatnot, even Dig Dug. Okay, moving on. Okay, the next games I used to have on PS2 were the Xenosaga series. Xenosaga 1, Xenosaga 2, and Xenosaga 3. I played it and beat all 3 Xenosaga games, but I never did get 100% on all of them. But I played through the games and I managed to beat them okay. I did have to cheat just a teensy bit on number 2 because there were no items or shops or item shops or anything like that in part 2. If you remember, part 2 was a bit of a downer because of the combat system and there were no item shops or anything like that. Part 1 was good, but the cutscenes were very long, like a lot of people say. But the battle system was nice and fluid. Part 3 combined both elements of 1 and 2 together, and it did a pretty good job. A nice way to end the series. Originally, I think it was going to be 6 games, but they only toned it down to about 3. I don't know what the deal with that was. I mean, I don't know what the deal with what was up with that. Next game is one of my close favorites that I liked, Kuniochi's Pro Skater 3. I've had that game for about 5 total years up until I threw away my old copy because GameStop gave me a cheap case with no instruction booklet or cover art, and there was no way I could trade it in anywhere because of the way how the disc looked and everything, but the disc game played greatly, but I threw it away. I originally also lost that game somehow in my brother's room too. Somehow I lost both the box and the disc at the same time. I don't know how in the world that happened, but Kuniochi's Pro Skater 3 holds a very precious place in my heart, especially with my custom character I made, Killer Leo, modeled after me in a way, what I would look like if I was a skateboarder. Next up is... The next games I used to have on PS2 were the original Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, and the original Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater. I had the originals for quite some time before I got the expanded versions, which are Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance and Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence. I enjoyed the originals up to their fullest, and once I got the expansion versions, I just traded them in. Let me see, what other games did I have? Yeah, the Abomination, which is Devil May Cry 2. I had Devil May Cry 2 for about 4 years up until I sold it. Because after I beat the game, I'm like, never again will I play this Abomination again. Especially on the Lucia disc. When you fight that giant underwater fish monster, whatever it's called with Lucia, in the hardest difficulty ever, the boss will never turn visible. Period. And I'm like, how in the world do you expect me to fight this boss when it stays invisible all the time? That's just pathetic. Especially against Bolvik, who you fight with as Dante. And the lock-on system sucked badly. It sucked so badly. And the final boss wasn't even anything to be... wasn't even worth it, in my opinion. And Capcom messed up with Devil May Cry 2 in many ways, and I wish they could have done a whole lot better with it. But, basically, those are basically all the PS2 games I used to have back then on PS2. Well, I guess that concludes this video for the time being. I'm Leo Hightower, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Might be a character profile video, might be me doing something else, who knows. But for now, this is Leo Hightower, and I am signing out. Peace out, guys.